Part 1. The Desperate Call. The alarms screamed through the command center of Valoria Prime. Ambassador Velterra's four hands moved frantically across the holographic controls, her thin fingers trembling. Outside the massive windows, the sky burned orange and red. The Krovan swarm had broken through the final defensive line. "Send the distress signal again," Velterra shouted to her communications officer. "Maximum power. The Palaxians must hear us." The Valorians had been allies with the Palaxian Commonwealth for over 300 years. The Palaxians were strong, advanced, and had always protected them. They would come. They had to come. The communications officer, a young Valorian named Tixal, worked desperately at his station. "Ambassador, the Krovan are jamming all frequencies. I'm redirecting the signal through the outer relay stations, but..." The building shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. In the distance, another explosion lit up the darkening sky. The Krovan were methodical destroyers. They would take everything, kill everyone, and move on to the next world. That was what they did. That was all they did. "Send it anyway," Velterra ordered. "Send it everywhere. Someone has to hear us." Tixal's fingers flew across the controls. The distress beacon launched into space, carrying a simple message. "Help us. We are dying. Please help us." The signal shot out from Valoria Prime, heading toward Palaxian space. But space is strange. Space is vast and unpredictable. Near the edge of the Valorian system, a cosmic anomaly, a fold in space-time that the Valorians didn't even know existed, bent the signal. The distress call curved away from its intended path, twisted through dimensions that had no name, and shot off in a completely different direction. It traveled for 3 days through the void. And then it reached Earth. Commander Dae-hyun sat in the operations center of Fleet Command, deep beneath the mountains of what used to be called Korea. He was reviewing supply reports when the alert came through. Lieutenant Yoon-ji burst into his office, her face pale. "Commander, we're receiving a signal. It's not from any of our colonies. It's not from anywhere we know." Dae-hyun stood immediately. "Show me." They rushed to the communications center. The large screens displayed a waveform that pulsed with strange rhythms. The signal was definitely artificial, definitely intelligent, and definitely not human. "Get the translators working on it," Dae-hyun ordered, "and wake up the High Council. They need to hear this." Within an hour, Earth's most powerful leaders gathered in the emergency conference room. Admiral Mirai, the head of Earth's Fleet Command, stood at the center. The translated message played through the speakers. "This is Ambassador Velterra of the Valorian Council. We are under attack. The Krovan swarm has broken our defenses. Millions are dead. Billions more will die. We need military assistance immediately. Please, if anyone receives this, we need help. We are being massacred." The room fell silent. For 40 years, humanity had been exploring space. They had built colonies on Mars and Europa. They had sent ships to nearby star systems, but they had never found anyone else. They had been alone. Until now. "Is this real?" one of the council members asked. "Could it be a trick?" "The signal came from 53 light-years away," Yoon-ji explained. "The technology is completely unknown to us. If this is a trick, it's the most elaborate hoax in human history." Captain Hae-jin, one of Fleet Command's most experienced officers, leaned forward. "It doesn't matter if we're sure. Sapient beings are calling for help. If we have the ability to respond and we choose not to, what does that say about us?" The council members looked at each other. They were thinking about risk, about resources, about the possibility of walking into a trap. But Hae-jin was right. They were thinking about humanity's soul. Admiral Mirai made the decision. "Commander Dae-hyun, prepare an expeditionary fleet. 5 destroyers, 2 carriers, and the Indomitable. You will take command. Find these Valorians. Help them if you can." Dae-hyun saluted. "Yes, Admiral. When do we leave?" "As soon as the fleet can launch. We've been alone in the universe for so long. Now we know we're not. And if there are others out there who need help, then humanity will answer the call." 3 days later, the human fleet gathered in orbit above Earth. The ships were not beautiful. They were not elegant. They were built like fortresses, covered in armor plating, bristling with weapons. Humanity had built them expecting to fight each other, pirates, unknown threats. Now they would finally be tested. Captain He Jin stood on the bridge of the destroyer Relentless, watching her crew prepare for departure. Lieutenant Tae Yang, the fleet's xenobiologist, was reading everything he could find about potential alien life. Ensign So-min checked and rechecked the weapon systems. Tactical Officer Byung-ho plotted courses and backup courses and emergency courses. On the flagship Indomitable, Commander Dae-hyun addressed the entire fleet through the communication system. This is Commander Dae-hyun to all ships. We are about to do something no human has ever done. We are going to meet another intelligent species. We don't know what we'll find. We don't know if we'll come back. But someone out there is screaming for help, and we're going to answer. He paused, looking around his bridge at the men and women who had volunteered for this mission. We carry Earth's flag into the unknown. Let's make sure that when these aliens meet humanity for the first time, they see the best of what we are. All ships, prepare for FTL jump. The fleet's engines roared to life. Space twisted around the ships as they punched into faster-than-light travel. The journey would take 6 days. Back on Valoria Prime, Ambassador Veltara watched another city fall to the Krovan. She had sent the distress signal 10 days ago. No response had come. The Palaxians weren't coming. No one was coming. She prepared to evacuate to the underground shelters with the last of her people. The Valorian civilization, which had existed for 10,000 years, would end within a week. She allowed herself one moment of despair, one moment to mourn everything that would be lost. Then she returned to work. Even if help never came, she would fight to her last breath. That was what leaders did. In the darkness of space between stars, the human fleet raced toward a world they had never seen, to save people they had never met. For no reason, except that it was the right thing to do. The Valorians thought they were alone. They were wrong. Help was coming, but they had no idea what kind of help they had summoned. Part 2. First Contact Terror. The human fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Valorian system. Commander Dae-hyun gripped the arms of his command chair as the stars snapped back into normal space. The view screens immediately lit up with data. Multiple hostile contacts, Tactical Officer Byung-ho reported. I count 47 enemy vessels engaged with the inner planets. 3 colony worlds show no life signs. The capital planet is under siege. Dae-hyun studied the tactical display. The enemy ships, the Krovan, moved in coordinated swarm patterns. They were winning. Communications. Send a message to the planet. Tell them help has arrived. Lieutenant Yoon-ji worked at her station, then frowned. Commander, their language is nothing like ours. The computer is trying to build a translation matrix, but it will take time. Keep trying. Hyejin, take the Vanguard destroyers forward. Stay at maximum range and observe. I want to know what we're dealing with before we commit. Captain Hyejin's voice came through the comm system from her ship. Understood? Relentless, defiant, and thunder moving forward. On Valoria Prime, the detection alarms went off in the command center. Ambassador Veltara rushed to the sensor station. What is it? More Krovan? The sensor operator's voice shook. No, Ambassador. Unknown contacts. 8 ships just entered the system. The energy signatures. They're not Palaxian. Veltara's hearts, both of them, began to race. Then who? I don't know. The computer doesn't recognize the design. But, Ambassador... The operator turned to look at her, his face filled with fear. These ships, they're heavily armed. More armed than anything I've ever seen. And their power signatures suggest massive nuclear reactors. Nuclear? Veltara felt cold. No civilized species used nuclear power anymore. It was dangerous, primitive, and inefficient. Are they responding to our distress call? They're trying to communicate, but the language is completely unknown. Wait, the AI is making progress. I'm getting something. The main screen flickered. An image appeared. Veltara stared at the creature on the screen and felt her body freeze in terror. The creature was bipedal, standing upright like a Valorian. But that was where the similarities ended. It had only 2 arms, not 4. Its skin was smooth, covered in some kind of uniform. Its face was flat, with two forward-facing eyes, predator eyes. When it spoke, trying to communicate, she could see its teeth. Flat teeth for grinding, but also pointed teeth. An omnivore. A creature that ate both plants and meat. "This is Commander Dae-hyun of the United Earth Navy," the creature said. The translator AI was starting to work, but the voice was deep and strong. "We received your distress signal. We are here to help." "Earth?" Velterra whispered. She accessed the databanks, searching for any mention of this world. The computer found it. A planet in an unmapped sector. The data that came through made her want to faint. Earth. Gravity, 1.2 g. Atmospheric pressure, 101 kilopascals. Oxygen content, 21%. Temperature range, 89 to 57 degrees. Native predator species count, estimated at over 10,000. Survival classification, Class 12 Death World. A death world. The most dangerous category of planet known to science. Worlds where everything tried to kill you, where survival was a daily battle, where only the strongest and most adaptable life could exist. And somehow, impossibly, sapient life had evolved there. "We are pleased that you responded," Veltara managed to say, keeping her voice steady. "But we called for the Palaxians. Who are you?" "We are human," Commander Dae-hyun said simply. "Your signal reached us by accident, but you asked for help and we came. The Krovan are attacking you?" "Yes, they have destroyed 3 of our worlds already. They will kill us all." The human's face changed. The expression was hard to read. But something in those predator eyes became cold. "Not if we can stop them. We're moving into position now." The communication ended. Veltara turned to her council members, who had all gathered to watch. "What have we done?" she whispered. "We called for help and attracted monsters." "The Krovan are monsters," one council member said. "Perhaps we need monsters to fight monsters." On the Relentless, Captain Hyejin watched the Krovan ships through the view screen. They were huge, each one twice the size of her destroyer. Their armor was thick, their shields strong. They moved with confidence, like apex predators who had never met a real challenge. "They've spotted us," Lieutenant Taeyang reported. He was supposed to be a xenobiologist, but right now he was manning the science station. 3 Krovan ships breaking off to intercept. "Good," Hyejin said calmly. "Let's see what they can do. Weapons. Prepare to engage. I want targeting solutions on all 3. Ensign Soman's fingers danced across her controls. Railguns charged. Missile tubes loaded. Ready on your command, Captain. The Krovan ships approached in a tight formation. They were fast, Hyejin noticed. But their tactics were predictable. They thought their size and numbers made them unstoppable. They had probably never fought anyone who didn't run. "All ships. This is Hyejin. Remember your training. We go in hard, we go in fast, and we don't stop until they do. Fire at will." The 3 human destroyers opened fire simultaneously. Railguns, simple, primitive kinetic weapons, launched tungsten rounds at a fraction of the speed of light. The Krovan shields absorbed the first volley, but the second and third punched through. Metal tore through metal. One Krovan ship's engine exploded, sending it spinning out of control. The Krovan returned fire with plasma cannons. The beams were powerful, but the human ships were already moving. Hyejin's destroyer rolled, dove, and came up underneath the second Krovan ship. "Missiles away," Soman reported. Nuclear-tipped missiles streaked across the space between the ships. The Krovan tried to shoot them down, but human missiles were built to survive. They were armored, fast and determined. 3 of them reached their target. The nuclear explosions lit up space like tiny suns. When the light faded, the Krovan ship was a broken, burning wreck. On Valoria Prime, the entire command center watched in stunned silence. The humans had just destroyed 2 Krovan ships in less than 3 minutes, ships that had taken hours for the Valorian defense fleet to damage. "What are they?" someone whispered. The 3rd Krovan ship tried to flee. Captain Hyejin smiled coldly and gave chase. "Oh no, you came here to kill innocent people. You don't get to run." The destroyer caught up to the Krovan ship and fired again. This time, The railguns targeted the engines. The Krovan ship died in space, powerless and helpless. 3 down, Heejin reported to Commander Daehyun. The rest of the Krovan fleet is pulling back from the planet. They've noticed us. Good, Daehyun replied. All ships, advance. It's time to end this. The full human fleet moved forward. 8 ships against 44 remaining Krovan vessels. By every rule of space combat, the humans should have retreated, should have called for reinforcements, should have done anything except charge directly at an enemy that outnumbered them 5-1. But humans didn't follow galactic rules. Humans came from a world where everything was a threat, where survival meant fighting when others would flee, where giving up meant death. The human fleet accelerated toward the Krovan, weapons ready, engines roaring. And for the first time in their long history of conquest, the Krovan swarm felt something they had never experienced before. Fear. Sakkur Part 3. The Deathworlder Doctrine. The Krovan war leader watched the approaching human ships with a mixture of confusion and contempt. 8 small vessels dared to challenge his fleet of 44? These newcomers must be fools. Or perhaps they didn't understand the situation. He would teach them quickly. All ships, maintain formation, the war leader commanded. We will crush them with our first volley, then return to destroying the Valorian capital. The Krovan fleet moved into their standard battle formation, a wide net designed to surround and overwhelm enemies. It had worked on every species they had ever fought. The war leader saw no reason it would fail now. Then the human ships did something unexpected. They didn't slow down. They didn't try to maneuver. They simply accelerated directly at the Krovan center. "They're charging us," one of the Krovan officers said, disbelief in his voice. "Fools," the war leader said. "All ships, open fire." The Krovan fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams, particle cannons, and fusion torpedoes filled the space between the two fleets. The human ships should have been torn apart. But their armor was thick, much thicker than standard galactic designs. Where most species built fast, maneuverable ships with strong shields, humans built ships that could take damage and keep fighting. The first volley hit the human fleet like a hammer. 2 destroyers took direct hits, their armor scorched and dented. But they didn't stop. They didn't even slow down. They kept coming, now firing back with those primitive but devastatingly effective railguns. Commander Daehyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display. "All ships break formation on my mark. Hyejin, take your group left. Dongwoo, take your carriers right. We're going through them, not around them." "Through them?" Lieutenant Yoonji repeated. In galactic warfare, ships tried to stay at maximum range, fighting with energy weapons and missiles. They didn't drive directly through enemy formations. "Through them," Daehyun confirmed. "Mark." The human fleet split apart like a blade, each group cutting into different sections of the Krovan formation. The maneuver was insane by galactic standards, but it worked. The Krovan had prepared for a long-range battle. They weren't ready for enemies who fought at knife-fighting range. Captain Hyejin's destroyer group ripped into the left flank of the Krovan fleet. Her ship, the Relentless, came alongside a Krovan heavy cruiser. At this range, the combat was brutal and direct. "Fire everything," Hyejin ordered. Railguns hammered the Krovan ship's armor. Missiles impacted at point-blank range. The Krovan ship returned fire, but at this distance, their large plasma cannons couldn't track fast enough. The human ships were too quick, too aggressive. "Hull breach on the enemy ship," Tactical Officer Byung-ho reported. "Their reactor is failing." "Good. Next target." The Relentless moved on, leaving the dying Krovan ship behind. This was how humans fought: fast, brutal, and without mercy. When you came from a world where hesitation meant death, you learned to finish fights quickly. On the Indomitable, Commander Daehyun had a different mission. The Krovan command ship was a massive vessel at the center of their formation. It was twice the size of the human flagship and carried heavy armor. But Daehyun had a plan. "Bring us in close," he ordered. "I want to board that ship." The bridge crew looked at him in shock. Board an enemy vessel during a space battle? That was insanity. But Daehyun was serious. "Sir," Lieutenant Yoonji said carefully, Boarding actions are extremely dangerous. We could lose. That's an order, Lieutenant. Sergeant Dong Ha, prepare your Marines. In the ship's Marine bay, Sergeant Dong Ha and his squad checked their weapons and armor. They were the best of Earth soldiers, trained for combat in any environment. But they had never fought aliens before. They didn't know what to expect. Listen up, Dong Ha said to his squad. We don't know what these Krovan look like up close. We don't know how tough they are, but we know they came to kill innocent people. That makes them the enemy, and we know what to do with enemies. The Marines nodded. They were nervous, but they were ready. The Indomitable closed with the Krovan command ship, taking heavy fire. The armor held, but barely. Daehyun brought his ship alongside the enemy, and the boarding tubes extended. Metal clanged against metal as the connections locked. Breach successful, the tactical officer reported. Marines, you are go. Dong Ha and his squad rushed through the boarding tube and into the Krovan ship. Emergency doors tried to seal against them, but human-cutting torches melted through the metal. The Marines pushed forward into a large corridor. Then they met the Krovan. The aliens were huge, 3 meters tall with thick exoskeletons that served as natural armor. They had 6 limbs, 4 of which ended in razor-sharp plasma claws. Their faces were insectoid and terrifying, with mandibles that clicked and hissed. One of the Marines, a young soldier named Tai Jin, froze in fear. He had never seen anything so monstrous, but Sergeant Dong Ha had. Back on Earth, he had trained in jungles filled with venomous creatures, in deserts where the heat itself tried to kill you, in mountains where the cold froze your lungs. He had faced death many times. This was just another predator. Fire! Dong Ha shouted. The Marines opened up with their weapons. Bullets tore through the Krovan armor that was designed to resist energy weapons. The aliens shrieked and charged forward, their plasma claws reaching for the humans. Hand-to-hand combat erupted in the corridor. A Krovan warrior slashed at Dong Ha, but the sergeant was faster. He ducked under the attack and drove his combat knife up into the alien's softer underbelly. The Krovan fell, green blood pooling on the floor. The Marines fought like demons. They were smaller than the Krovan, but they were stronger than they looked. Earth's high gravity had made their muscles dense and powerful. What's more, humans understood violence in a way that few other species did. They didn't just fight to win. They fought to survive. The battle raged through the corridors of the Krovan ship. More aliens came, but the Marines pushed forward. They used grenades in tight spaces, fired from cover, and when necessary, fought hand-to-hand with a ferocity that shocked the Krovan. On Valoria Prime, Ambassador Velterra and her council watched the battle unfold on their sensors. They couldn't see the details, but they could see the results. Human ships were tearing through the Krovan fleet like it was paper. How is this possible? One council member asked. The humans are outnumbered. Their technology seems primitive. How are they winning? Because they fight like the Krovan do, Velterra said quietly. No, they fight worse than the Krovan. They don't care about their own safety. They just attack and never stop. She was right. The human battle doctrine was based on aggression, speed, and overwhelming firepower. While most galactic species tried to minimize casualties and damage, humans accepted losses as part of war. They had learned, over thousands of years of conflict on their hellish homeworld, that sometimes you had to be willing to bleed to win. 6 hours after the battle began, the Krovan swarm broke. Their war leader was dead, killed when Sergeant Dong Ha's Marines reached the command center. 23 Krovan ships were destroyed. 17 more were crippled and captured. The remaining 4 ships fled into FTL, running as fast as their engines could carry them. The human fleet hung in space, battered and scarred but victorious. Not a single human ship had been lost. There were injuries, yes. There was damage, certainly. But they had won against an enemy that outnumbered them 5-1. On the Indomitable's bridge, Commander Dae-hyun received reports from all his ships. When the last one came in, he allowed himself to smile. Send a message to the Valorians, he said. Tell them the Krovan threat has been eliminated. Tell them they're safe now. Lieutenant Yoonji sent the message, then turned to look at her commander. Sir, what happens now? Dae-hyun looked at the planet below, where billions of aliens waited in fear and hope. Now we find out if we can be friends. Through Part 4, The Price of Salvation. The landing shuttle descended through Valoria Prime's thin atmosphere. Inside, Commander Dae-hyun sat with his senior officers, all wearing respirators. The air outside would be too thin for human lungs. The gravity would be too light. Everything about this world was wrong for human biology. But they were going anyway. Remember, Dae-hyun said to his team, we're here as friends. These people are terrified of us. We need to show them we're not monsters. Captain Hye-jin adjusted her respirator. Sir, we just killed hundreds of Krovan, some of them with our bare hands. They saw that. They know what we're capable of. Which is exactly why we need to show them our other side, Dae-hyun replied. Dr. Ji-woo, you're the key here. Help their wounded. Show them we can heal as well as fight. Dr. Ji-woo nodded. She was nervous about meeting aliens, but she was a doctor first. If there were people who needed help, she would help them. That was her oath. The shuttle landed in a protected courtyard near the Valorian government building. The humans stepped out carefully. The low gravity made them feel strange, like they might float away with each step. They had to move slowly, deliberately. Ambassador Veltara waited for them with a security escort. She was small by human standards, maybe 1.5 meters tall, with delicate features and large eyes. Her 4 hands fidgeted nervously as the humans approached. Dae-hyun stepped forward and stopped at a respectful distance. He had studied what little information they had about Valorian body language. He kept his hands visible and open, trying to appear non-threatening. It was difficult when you were built like a predator. Ambassador Veltara, he said, his voice translated by the device on his collar. Thank you for meeting with us. I'm Commander Dae-hyun of Earth. Veltara studied him carefully. The human was tall, nearly twice her height. His species had obvious predator heritage. But his eyes, those forward-facing hunter's eyes, held something unexpected. Kindness, maybe, or at least the attempt at kindness. Commander, she replied, you saved my world. Billions of my people are alive because of you. We don't know how to thank you. No thanks are necessary, Dae-hyun said. You called for help. We answered. That's what civilized beings do. Civilized. The word hung in the air. Veltara had watched these humans fight. She had seen them charge into battle without fear, seen them board enemy ships and fight with a savagery that made even the Krovan seem gentle. Were these creatures truly civilized? But then she looked past Dae-hyun to the woman standing behind him. Dr. Ji-woo stepped forward, carrying a medical bag. Ambassador, Ji-woo said gently, I'm a doctor. I'd like to help your wounded, if you'll allow it. I don't know much about Valorian biology, but I can learn. Please, let me help. There was something in the doctor's voice that made Veltara's fear ease slightly. The human female looked exhausted. The low gravity and thin air were clearly affecting her. But she had come anyway, to help strangers, to heal people she had never met. Yes, Veltara said. Yes, please. We have so many wounded. Our hospitals are overwhelmed. If you can help, we would be grateful. Over the next 3 days, Dr. Ji-woo and her medical team worked alongside Valorian doctors. It was difficult. Valorian biology was completely different from human biology. They had 2 hearts, different blood chemistry, and their bodies couldn't handle many human medicines. But Ji-woo learned quickly. She watched, she studied, and she helped. The Valorian doctors were amazed by human medical technology. Humans had developed incredibly advanced medicine because they needed it. On Earth, people got sick, got injured, got infected by thousands of different diseases. Survival meant becoming experts at healing. More than that, the Valorians were amazed by human compassion. Ji-woo worked 18-hour days in the hospitals. She barely ate. She barely slept. The low gravity and thin air made her weak, but she refused to stop. When a young Valorian child was dying, Ji-woo stayed by the child's bedside all night, holding the tiny alien hand, comforting the frightened patient. By the 3rd day, the Valorian doctors stopped being afraid of the humans. They started asking questions. They wanted to know about Earth, about human culture, about how such fierce warriors could also be so kind. Lieutenant Tae Young, the xenobiologist, found himself giving an impromptu lecture to a group of Valorian scientists. They wanted to understand Earth, this terrible, deadly world that had produced such strange creatures. Earth is hard, Ta Yang explained, showing images on a holographic display. The weather changes constantly. We have storms that can destroy entire cities. We have earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis. We have predators everywhere, on land, in the water, in the air. For millions of years, survival on Earth meant being tough, being smart, and working together. But how did you survive? One Valorian scientist asked. Your world should have killed you. It tried, Tae Yang said with a smile. Many times. But we're stubborn. We learn to use tools. We learn to cooperate. We learn to adapt. And eventually, we learn to thrive. Earth made us strong, but it also taught us to value life. Because when death is always close, you appreciate life more. On the fourth day, Ambassador Veltara invited Commander Dae-hyun to a private meeting. They sat in her office looking out at the city below. The fires had been put out. Recovery was beginning. But the scars of war were everywhere. Commander, Veltara said quietly, I need to ask you a question. And I need you to be honest with me. Of course. How can you be both saviors and monsters? I watched your people fight. I saw the violence, the aggression, the absolute refusal to stop. You didn't just defeat the Krovan. You destroyed them. You were terrifying. She paused, gathering courage. But then I watched Dr. Jiwoo care for our children. I see your soldiers helping rebuild our cities. I see compassion and kindness. How can both things be true? Dae-hyun was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice soft but firm. Ambassador, on Earth we have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. It means be kind when you can, but be ready to fight when you must. We are capable of great violence, yes. Earth taught us that. But Earth also taught us that cooperation is stronger than conflict. That compassion is not weakness, that protecting the innocent is worth any cost. He turned to look at her directly. We fought the Krovan so fiercely because we knew what they were doing to your people. We've experienced genocide on our own world. We've seen what happens when evil isn't stopped. So when we fight to win. We fight to end threats permanently so they can never hurt anyone again. But after the fight, Veltar asked, after the fight we heal, we rebuild, we help, because that's who we want to be. Earth made us survivors, but we chose to be more than that. We chose to be protectors. Veltara felt tears forming in her eyes. The Palaxians were our allies for 300 years, but they never came. You didn't know us. You had no obligation to help. Why did you come? Because you asked, Dae-hyun said simply. Because someone needed help, and we could give it. That's reason enough. Ambassador Veltara stood and extended all four of her hands to the human commander. It was a Valorian gesture of deepest respect and trust. Then let me say this formally. The Valorian Council offers friendship to humanity. We want to know you better, to understand you, to stand beside you if you'll have us. Dae-hyun stood and carefully took her hands in his. The gesture felt right. Earth accepts your friendship, Ambassador, and we'll stand beside you too. Outside the office, the sun was setting over the battered but surviving city. Two species, so different, had found common ground. One from a world of peace and plenty, the other from a world of death and struggle. But both understood the value of life. Both understood the meaning of courage. And both knew that sometimes, the best friendships begin in the darkest moments. Part 5. A Place Among the Stars. The message from the Galactic Council arrived 6 days after the battle. Ambassador Veltara read it with growing concern, then immediately contacted Commander Dae-hyun. They want to meet you, she told the human commander. The Council has learned about your intervention. They're concerned. Dae-hyun understood what concerned meant in diplomatic language. The galaxy's leaders were scared. A previously unknown species had appeared, destroyed a large military force, and done it using weapons that most civilizations considered barbaric. Of course they were concerned. "Will you come with us?" Daehyun asked. "We'll need someone to speak for us, someone they trust." "Yes," Veltara said immediately. "You saved us. The least I can do is help you navigate galactic politics." 2 days later, a small delegation left for the council station. Commander Daehyun led the human group, along with Captain Heejin and a newly appointed ambassador named Hyun-woo. Hyun-woo was a career diplomat who had negotiated treaties between Earth's nations. Now he would negotiate humanity's place among the stars. The council station was enormous, a massive structure built in neutral space, large enough to house representatives from dozens of species. As the human shuttle approached, Hyun-woo stared at it in awe. "It's beautiful," he said. "It's also intimidating," Heejin replied. "That's the point. They want visitors to feel small." The shuttle docked, and the humans stepped out into the station. Immediately, they noticed the attention. Aliens of every description stopped to stare at them. Some looked curious. Many looked afraid. A few looked hostile. The humans were among the smallest species present, but they moved with a confidence that made others step aside. There was something about the way they walked, the way they held themselves, that suggested strength. An escort led them to the council chambers. The room was vast, with seats arranged in a circle around a central platform. Representatives from 27 species sat in those seats, all of them watching as the human delegation entered. Ambassador Veltara walked beside the humans, her 4 hands clasped together nervously. She had spoken before the council many times, but never about something this important. The council speaker, a tall being from a species called the Hextari, rose to address the room. "We gather today to address the appearance of a new species, humanity, from the planet Earth. They have entered galactic space and have already engaged in military action. The council must decide how to respond." A representative from the Krovan Empire stood immediately. He was not a warrior like those who had attacked Valoria Prime, but a diplomat dressed in ceremonial armor. "The humans attacked our fleet without provocation. They destroyed 23 ships and killed thousands of our people. This aggression cannot stand." Veltara stood quickly. "That is a lie. The Krovan attacked my people. They destroyed 3 of our worlds. The humans came to our defense." "You called the Palaxians," the Krovan diplomat countered. "Not these creatures. They had no right to interfere." The chamber erupted in debate. Some species argued that humanity should be expelled from galactic space. Others suggested they should be quarantined on their own world. A few, very few, suggested that humanity should be welcomed. Through it all, the human delegation sat quietly, waiting. Daehyun had taught them patience. "Let them argue," he had said. "Let them fear. We'll respond when the time is right." Then the door to the chamber opened again. A delegation from the Palaxian Commonwealth entered, led by Admiral Sixer. The room fell silent. The Palaxians were a powerful, ancient species. Their word carried weight. Admiral Sixer approached the center platform and addressed the council. "We have completed our investigation into the Valorian incident. Our relief fleet was intercepted and destroyed by Krovan ambush forces. The distress call was part of a trap. The Valorians were meant to die, and their systems were to be annexed by the Krovan Empire." The Krovan diplomat's face went pale. We had no knowledge of. We have evidence," Sixer continued coldly. "Communications, fleet movements, everything. The Krovan planned this attack for months. The only reason the Valorians survived is because of human intervention. Intervention that saved billions of innocent lives." The chamber erupted again, but this time the anger was directed at the Krovan. Their diplomat tried to defend his government, but the evidence was overwhelming. The Krovan had orchestrated a genocide, and they had been caught. Finally, the council speaker raised his hand for silence. "The Krovan charges are dismissed. The question now becomes, what are we to do about humanity?" Ambassador Hyun-woo stood. This was his moment. He walked to the center platform, feeling the eyes of dozens of alien species upon him. "Honorable council members," he began, "I understand your concerns. We are new. We are unknown. Our technology seems primitive, our weapons brutal. You look at us and see a threat." He paused, looking around the chamber. "But I ask you to see something else. See a species that answered a cry for help from people they had never met. See a species that traveled across the stars, not for conquest, but for rescue. See a species that fought fiercely, yes, but only to protect the innocent. You come from a death world," one council member said. "Your evolution made you into killers. Our evolution made us into survivors," Yunwu corrected. "Earth is harsh, it's dangerous, but it also taught us to value cooperation, to treasure life, to protect the weak. We could have stayed on our world, isolated and alone. Instead, we chose to reach for the stars. We chose to find friends among the cosmos." Captain Heejin stood beside Hyunwoo. "We're not asking for special treatment. We're not demanding anything. We're simply offering our hand in friendship. And yes, if necessary, we'll offer our strength to defend those who cannot defend themselves." Ambassador Veltara rose again. "The Valorians formally sponsor humanity's application to the Galactic Council. They saved us when our longtime allies could not. They showed us that strength and compassion are not mutually exclusive. We trust them, and we ask you to give them a chance." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some species remained opposed, arguing that Deathworlders were too dangerous to integrate into galactic society. Others were more open, recognizing that humanity had, despite their fearsome capabilities, shown restraint and honor. Finally, a vote was called. The council chamber fell silent as each representative cast their decision. The humans waited, their futures hanging in the balance. The council speaker tallied the votes, then turned to address the chamber. By a vote of 19-8, with one abstention, the Galactic Council grants provisional membership to humanity. They will have full trading rights, diplomatic recognition, and the protection of council law. They will be monitored for a period of 5 years, after which full membership may be considered. Relief flooded through the human delegation. They had done it. Humanity had a place among the stars. As they left the chamber, dozens of alien representatives approached them. Some wanted to establish trade agreements. Others wanted to learn more about Earth. A few even expressed admiration for humanity's actions. The Krovan diplomat, however, hurried away without looking at them. The Krovan Empire had been humiliated today. They had been exposed as aggressors and defeated in battle. They would not forget this. But that was a problem for another day. That evening, the human delegation returned to their ship in orbit around the council station. Commander Dae-hyun stood on the bridge, looking at the stars. So many stars, so many worlds, and now, humanity was part of it all. "Sir," Lieutenant Yoonji said, approaching him with a message pad. "We're receiving communications from Earth. Admiral Mirai wants a full report." "Tell her we were successful," Dae-hyun said. "Tell her humanity has been welcomed into the galactic community, and tell her to prepare the fleet. Now that we're here, we're going to explore, we're going to learn, and if anyone else out there needs help, we're going to answer that call." "Just like we did for the Valorians," Yoonji said with a smile. "Exactly like that." In the weeks and months that followed, humanity began its true journey into the stars. Trade missions launched. Cultural exchanges began. Human ships started mapping unknown regions of space. Diplomatic relations were established with dozens of species. The Valorians remained humanity's closest allies. Dr. Jiwoo established a medical exchange program, teaching Valorian doctors about human medicine while learning about alien biology. Lieutenant Tai Yang led scientific expeditions with Valorian researchers. The friendship that had been forged in fire grew stronger in peace. Other species, seeing humanity's actions, began to reconsider their own assumptions about Deathworlders. Perhaps beings from harsh worlds weren't automatically violent and dangerous. Perhaps they simply understood, better than most, the value of both strength and compassion. 5 years later, when humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, no one voted against them. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never judge a species by where they come from. Judge them by what they do. And what humanity did was answer the call when others needed help. They explored with wonder. They traded with fairness. They fought when necessary and made peace when possible. Earth's children had finally found their place among the stars. And the galaxy, for all its initial fear, was richer for having them there. Commander Dae-hyun, now Admiral, stood once more on the bridge of the Indomitable. But this time the ship was leading an expedition fleet of both human and alien vessels. They were heading toward an unexplored region of space, ready for whatever they might find. "All ships report ready," Captain Hye-jin said. She commanded her own vessel now, part of the growing Earth fleet. "Then let's see what's out there," Dae-hyun said. "Take us to FTL." The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, disappearing into the cosmos. Behind them, Earth spun in the darkness, home to the species that had once thought they were alone. They weren't alone anymore. They had friends. They had allies. They had a future among the stars. And somewhere out there, on a world they had never heard of, someone might be calling for help. When that call came, humanity would be ready to answer, because that was what Deathworlders did. They survived. They protected. They never abandoned those who needed them. The galaxy had summoned for help, accidentally calling the most unlikely saviors. And those saviors had proven that even from the harshest worlds, the strongest friendships could grow.